I'm live, and I've just seen a thing come up as I pressed the go live button. It said, this will not be recorded on StreamYard. Click here to upgrade your plan. So I don't know if it means it won't be kept here on StreamYard, or if it means it won't stay on YouTube, which doesn't make sense. So maybe this will be live and then it won't be available afterwards. If so, that's really cheeky that they've offered this option and now they're taking it away. Because then how do I save my videos? I have to subscribe. Ugh. Anyway, I guess can't expect much for free or anything for free these days. But I'm just coming live again, an impromptu live, because I just had a thought. And of course, just like anyone of a certain age these days feels that every thought that they have has to be broadcast on whichever platform they deem appropriate. So to be fair, you do not have to listen. But I had a thought, and it was that I was watching an interview with Vincent Petici over on Justin Michael's channel. I'm just going to go into my YouTube just to check that it is recording, because I'm confused now with the go live thing. It's thrown me off. Maybe it won't be up there when I oh no, it says I'm there. So I can hear myself. Okay, so I am there. Cool. There's no one in the chat though, but that's fine. I can talk to myself. I talk to myself all the time. Oh, it's just there's one person watching it. I talk to myself all the time. It's a terrible habit for some people, I guess. I sort of drive myself mad with it. I also sing to myself a lot. There's now 3 people watching, so it's jumped up. So oh wow, and then suddenly 3 people. It was like there was no one, and then there was a lot of you. So Butterfly Love Child, hello. Jen, hey Jen, and Sam, hiya. So anyway, so I've made myself a cup of tea. I was like, I'll make myself a cup of tea. Got myself a couple of the old hobnobs, and I was part way through stitching a pouch. I'm not procrastinating. It was just like, if I don't, I even wrote it down on a post-it note, and then I was like, sometimes I write things down on a post-it note or in a notebook, and I think that I will know what it means when I go back to it, and then I go back and read the note, and then I'm like, for like a video or something, just anything, and then I'm like, what was that? What was I thinking with that? And then the thoughts, all the ideas I had all around that have like fallen out of my brain. So it's like, just go live quickly and just get out. And it's not like a super important thought. That rhymes, important. Oh, it doesn't rhyme. Anyway, when I was watching this interview with Vincent Petici and over on Justin Michael's channel, and Justin Michael's asking him, Vinny, about his reading style. Because I don't know if any of you, for those of you who don't know who Vincent Petici is, he's a really great tarot reader. He reads, he does read with both Marseille and Smith-Waite. He's got his own deck that he did that I think is available on one of the print-on-demand sites. And he's a really interesting guy. He's written quite a few books that are self-published. You can get them on wherever good books are sold. I've not read any of his books, but I've watched a ton of his videos and his interviews. Jen says, happy to catch you, going to jump into bed soon, but I'll be listening along even if not chatting much. Okay, Jen, I wish you sweet dreams. Goodness, poor you listening to me, my awful hawking on as you drift off. Surely that'll give you nightmares. But each to their own. Okay, I'll try to. Shall I do like an ASMR? Oh, I've just realised my microphone is not in position. There we go. How's that? But yeah, he was talking about his reading style, because he doesn't use, again being Vincent Petici, he says that he doesn't use elements or the suits when it comes to the pips. I love nothing more than a ramble. I speak fluent ramble myself, says Jen. Bless you. There are a few of us here that are fluent in ramble, isn't there? But yeah, so he said that he doesn't use suits or elements when he does the reading. So for him, he's like, there are 14 different sort of archetypes within the minors, and those being, you know, obviously 1 through 10, and then the court cards. So to him, an ace is an ace is an ace, a 6 is a 6 is a 6, and he reads it a very interesting way, and he's spoken about this in his videos. So he says if he has, whether it is a Marseille deck in front of him or a Smith-Waite or a Thoth, to him, a 6 of wands is a 6 of wands is a 6 of wands. It doesn't matter which deck he's using. So he said if the phone rings and he's doing a phone reading and the closest deck to him is his Smith-Waite, he's like, okay, I'm doing a phone reading. That's what I'm reading with. You know, if he gets an email and he's doing an email reading, the closest deck is a Marseille. He's going to do a Marseille, and that deck does not affect the way that he reads. I think that's interesting. It makes me think about the way our reading styles, right? So there are some people that read that way, and they just treat tarot as tarot as tarot. And I've seen other people make videos about that. I think Esther over at Mindful Tarot has made videos about that in the past, about tarot as tarot as tarot. I think she even used that phrase. Maybe that's where I've got it as from, is tarot is tarot is tarot. It's quite satisfying to say. Hey Sarah, just wanted to say good morning. It's 6:30 a.m. here, so I may try to catch a couple more hours of sleep, but I will watch later. Hope you have a great day. Fascinating topic. Thank you, lovely. So yeah, thank you for popping in. But yeah, no pressure. Again, I'm going to say the famous words. I'm going to try and keep this short, but so I thought that was really interesting. There was, I believe, was it for Tarothon this year, or was it a separate live? I know that Anna over at Astral Lady Tarot did a video, and it was making one tarot system. I want to say it was for Tarothon, but I may be wrong. But I did watch that. I'm just, you know, my brain, I struggle to retain information, which makes learning new things pretty tricky at the moment. Pandemic brain. So she talks about pulling all of the different elements together from the different decks and sort of trying to create her own sort of singular system. And I guess maybe is in a view to do a similar thing. And she's got some really, it was Tarothon, says Jen. Thank you for the clarification on that. So she has some really interesting decks, and I think people famously know that she loves the Thoth. She has a couple of beautiful greenies. She also has the Triomphe della Luna Paradoxical, which is more Marseille but still pippish. And then she's got her classic Smith-Waite Centennial. She's got the Crow Tarot. Is it Crow or the Crow's Magic Tarot, which is like a super like funky, strange, interesting, sort of kitschy Marmite kind of deck. I personally think it's super fun. I love it. I don't know if I could read with it, but I can see the appeal. So I guess trying to pull all those together, elements of those together. So it's like, so then if you read tarot as one system, do you just do what Vincent Petici does, which is he has a system and he applies that blanket system to all decks regardless of the artwork? He says he doesn't really use the artwork. He doesn't read in a sort of storybook way, or, you know, like, it's fascinating how people read differently. And then again, your system could be that you do read in a very sort of visual way, and that you look at directionality and eye rhymes and, you know, what's going on. If it's a situational deck like the Smith-Waite, you're looking at what's going on in the cards, and you're maybe reading like a storyboard or a comic book strip in that style and telling a story. A bit sort of like some people will read Lenormand in that sort of storybook style rather than doing the combining. Again, different styles, right? You could do that. You could take that style. You're like, right, I'm a visual reader, and you apply that system that you use to every single deck. So whether you're reading a Smith-Waite or you're reading with the Thoth, which I think could maybe be a little tricky, and I guess because you can do the same thing that you do with the Marseille, where some cards, you know, you can, it's funny, like a lot of us were not really on the Marseille wagon a few years ago, and I'm the same. I thought Marseille were ugly. I've come to really, really love Marseille. I would say I prefer it over Smithwaite. I just still blows my mind when I hear myself say that. But so obviously, if you're using a Marseille and you've got the Page of Swords, and you're a sort of more of a visual reader or a sort of storybook reader, you can use things like, what is he looking at? And you can look at, the way that he's holding things, the position of the arms. But you can do things like hands in the deck, how you would read hands. So, here you've got two cards, and if they come up in a reading, they're looking away from each other, which would say something different to this. If you look here, if you had like a 3-card spread, they're looking towards each other, but they're also kind of looking down. So what could they be looking down on? Let's grab they might be looking down on, on something like this, right? They're looking down at the 10 of Cups. Maybe this represents, maybe they're a couple, and they've got like some sort of creative dream, and that they're working towards some goal, this sort of final, this completion. They're looking down at something, or they're looking, it could be in the middle and they're sort of looking in it. Again, that would also depend on, the way that you're laying out the cards. So, I know some people do that. I know that Simon at the Hermit's Cave, to him, he is, he sort of just grabs everything that he's learned, whether it's numerology or suits or elements or all that kind of stuff, and just pulls it in and just uses what comes to mind. And I think this might be the most common way of reading. We read a ton of books, we collect a bunch of decks, we try a bunch of things, we look at we overlay some different systems, we look at maybe astrology, Kabbalah, for me, herbalism, and all that kind of things. We look at numerology, we look at elements, we look at what the suit actually is physically. What does a cup do? What is the function of a cup, or of the function of a sword or a blade? And we look at that, and we study the different systems, right? The Thoth, the Marseille, the Smithwaite. We look at maybe decks that are doing kind of their own thing. Hello, Laura. Hello, Butterfly Love Child. Oh, you already said hello, Butterfly Love Child. My brain is not, again, retaining. I saw you were like the first one in, weren't you? And I think a lot of us do that, right? We sort of pull all those things together, and then there's a little bit of intuition, there's a little bit of sort of storybook reading. We put it all together, and then you have the context of the spread. If you're using a spread, I tend to freestyle it these days. And obviously the question, which is the main thing, the context of the question. And that all informs the way you read the cards. But actually, when I think about it, I've mentioned this before, I tend to read, I don't really read with Thoth. I'm still at that sort of learning phase, so I can't really speak to Thoth. I'm still sort of figuring that out. But when it comes to Smithwaite and it comes to Marseille, I see them as quite different, and they read differently to me. I do. I feel I can use positional spreads a bit more easily, it feels. And I think maybe that's because I started with situational deck. My first deck was the Osho Zone. So I started with situational decks with positional spreads. So maybe that's why it's just the way that I sort of started, and it's just in there in my head. But for me, for Marseille, I struggle with positional spreads with Marseille. So I do freestyle with Pip and Marseille. It's whatever. It's hello, Marsha. It's just, oh, hello, Anne. Everyone's sort of flooding in. So I'll have like, I'll do like the most simple one will be just 3 cards just in a row. And then for me, the next one that I use the most is probably the Lenormand portrait, right? The 3x3. And I read that quite Lenormandy. I'm looking at the rows, I'm looking at the columns, I'm looking at the corners, I'm looking at sort of, what's looking down on what's pressing down on what. It's funny how Lenormand has really sort of influenced my tarot reading. So that's pulling something in as well, and that's feeding into the way that I read a card. And I'm sure that's true for other people. That'd be interesting. Marsha, you are a big Lenormand, and obviously you really, Marsha, you go watch her videos. She's got got some really interesting explorations of different cartomantic systems. And she did a live chat with, was it with Mendy? You did a live chat with Mendy where you were talking about different sort of cartomantic systems that you were looking at. And Mendy was talking about Deste and talk about Kipper and stuff like that. Does that influence you, Marsha? Has that been sort of trickling in to your tarot reading, or do you keep them quite separate? Because I feel like sometimes like it's hard to separate them. And someone that I find really fascinating for that is Kelly Fitzgerald over at The Truth in Story. Hello, Trisha. Lovely to see you. I agree, Trisha, that I find the Marseille is more intuitive, and I read it in a lot more sort of wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey, sort of more fluid way. So, but Kelly Fitzgerald over at The Truth in Story is interesting because she reads tarot, she reads Kipper, she reads Lenormand, she did Deste. I can't remember if she's done some Sibylla. I think she actually did an unboxing of and comparison of a Sibylla, I believe, quite recently. I haven't watched it yet, but it's one that I've been saving to watch at some point. And oh dear, let's see, hang on, sorry, let's just wielding my wrench. So what was I saying? Yeah, so, and she also reads runes and Ogham, and she does geomancy and looks at astrology, but somehow she manages to like delineate those all in her mind and can hold all these systems. I think she's just playing cards as well, you know, like traditional cartomancy. And I do wonder, I'd love to actually should ask her if there is any sort of bleed through from that. But yeah, like I find that with a pip deck, I'm reading much more intuitively. I'm looking at the pictures more, whereas with, it's funny, yeah, the pictures in the Marseille tend to influence me a lot more than the pictures in a Smithwaite, because the Smithwaite, and another thing that Vincent Petici says, he's said before in videos, that the Smithwaite is a snapshot of just one of the meanings of that card. It's just a distillation of it's just one possibility, right? So for me, that can feel very static. I think that's when I started reading Marseille and pip decks, it actually felt very liberating. And so for me, when I sort of started trying to go back to situational decks, they felt very limiting because you've got this picture and it's very hard for me to sort of, I'm a very visual person. So I'm looking at that and I become sort of focused on that. And to me, it sort of starts to override the nuances, potential meanings for that. And so I have to rely more on the sort of things that I've learned about symbolism and stuff like that. So I do read different decks differently. I don't read tarot as one system. I do a little bit of what I was saying earlier, which I think a lot of us do, is just pulling in little bits. And like I said, Lenormand has definitely influenced my reading. I pull in what I've learned about numerology and the elements and herbalism and symbolism and directionality and, you know, the function of what would a Knight of Cups, is a very Tom Benjamin thing. What would the Knight of Cups be in the modern day? How do you relate that to a modern day career or job or person, right? How do you translate that to make it useful now, here and now, right? And you could also look at what would the Knight of Cups be like back in then. What was a knight back then, and how would the Knight of Cups be? I think we've used that a lot in the past as readers, but it's quite interesting to update that. So I do that, but I still see Lenormand, I'd see Marseille and Smithwaite, and now that I'm studying at Thoth, as quite different. And there, of course, there's some overlap, because with the Smithwaite, that was the Golden Dawn's take, because obviously the Golden Dawn had their own deck that individual members would have to recreate themselves as part of like the process of being in the Golden Dawn. It was one of the tasks that they would do or would have to complete. but that, you know, Waite working with Pamela Coleman Smith, it was a distillation of the, you know, the titles, the Golden Dawn's titles for each card, like the Lord of Suffering or whatever. I'm just pulling that out of my butthole. I can't remember what the actual titles are off the top of my head. But yeah, and then obviously the Thoth with Crowley and Lady Frida Harris was a reinterpretation of the same system, because they were both Golden Dawn. And obviously Crowley was like, well, I don't like how, because they were rivals, right? I don't like how Waite did it. I'm going to do my own thing. So I feel like the Smith-Waite and the Thoth are more closely related than they are to the Marseille. And the Marseille has an older tradition, and I would say like the Italian decks, like the Soprafinos and the Visconti like Sforzas and the Madrones and all those ones, have more in common probably with the Marseille. They feel more closely related, and then, you know, and that makes sense, right? Because these ones came so much earlier. And then, you know, the Smith-Waite and the Thoth, they both came in the 20th century, you know, which is the Marseille had been around for a long while by then. I'm just going to have a sip of tea. Firstly, because my mouth is starting to dry out from gassing for 20 minutes straight. And also because my tea is going to go cold. I had just made it when I sort of pressed record. So I'm going to be so gutted if this doesn't remain on my channel, and that StreamYard is not saving it to YouTube. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look through the there was a point that I wanted to make, but there's something else I wanted to say, but I just wanted to check the chat, because this is a conversation, and it's no fun if I'm just gassing at you, which I do have a tendency to do. It's just I've noticed that if I do keep stopping to look at the chat, I'm working out what's best for me to try and get what I'm trying to get across. It becomes a lot of little side quests and squirreling, and then it becomes a big hot mess, and then I'm like, oh fuck, I didn't say what I wanted to say, or I didn't quite get across what I was trying to get across. Butterfly Lovechild says, oh, actually, I just realized I can do this. I always forget. I never do this in my lives because I forget that it's a thing I can do. The artwork strongly informs how I interpret the specific card. Example, 6 of Wands would read differently as to its mood from deck to deck. Yeah, see, so you read more like you don't have a one system. And I'm like that when it comes to situational decks, right? So let's have a look. Let me grab some decks. I've got a bunch here. Hang on. Oh, they're all in the pouches. Let me just grab my pouches that have decks in, and let's have a look for examples, right? First of all, I'm going to have a look at the chat, though. So Laura came in, answered yes, totally. Find the deck I read with influences the reading. Love Marseille and Pip decks. I find I can read without prejudice from any image. That's interesting. Jen says, I definitely wish I'd picked up a Thoth and just read it intuitively before I got caught up in the whole, you have to read the system this specific way. Yeah. Marsha's saying hi. Trisha says, hello. Oh, yeah, I saw that one. Laura says, I don't usually use positional spreads with Marseille so much either. I also currently read Pip Marseille with reversals. Yes, that was another thing I was going to say. I'm the same. I use reversals with my Pip decks, but I don't with Smith-Waite. Isn't that funny? And I think it was because I saw Tom Benjamin talking about it and that he would use reversals. He since has ceased using reversals with his Marseille decks. He only reads upright. But I've stuck to the reversals, and one of the reasons I really like this classic tarot classic, I should say, this is a vintage deck, is that you know, when sometimes, like usually what I do is I put a dot in the bottom corner if it's hard to tell which way is up, because some cards look pretty much the same either way, but this one is good because it actually has the Roman numeral on the bottom rather than, it has them on the side as well, but it also has it on the bottom, so you always know which way is upright. So this is also why this is my study deck, because it's really just easy for me to just know which way is upright. Let's see. Musings by Marsha says, just saying hello to each other. Yes, Mendy, we have so many cartomantic decks between us. I mean, your Lenormand collection alone, Marsha, is impressive. I've enjoyed watching the little series you did on showing us your collection. Well, those different systems clarify my tarot readings as I'm learning to see and notice better, but more so those systems and playing card references share commonalities, which I love to explore. Yeah, see, that's what I mean. There is some crossover with them, and then they'll become a bit of bleed through in your own reading, I think. Anne says, let's just switch that up. I find if I add Lenormand cards, they can either clarify or confirm the reading of the tarot cards. When in doubt, I turn to astrological and esoterical associations. That's interesting because when I was younger, and I say when I was younger, when I first started reading the tarot, I'm just going to grab a book whilst I'm talking about it. I see if I can find it, if it's here. Here it is. So for my first tarot deck was the Osho Zen. And I was about 16, 17 when I got that deck. And I didn't know about all these different systems. It wasn't a thing I was even thinking about. The internet was barely a thing. I don't even know. We didn't even have the internet at home yet. I don't think we got internet at home until I was 18. We didn't have a computer in the home. We didn't have very much money. My mum was a single parent. Things were tough. We didn't have internet, didn't have a computer. The only computer I had access to with a little bit of dial-up on it would have been at school. And even then it was only in the computer science classrooms. And that had to be used for classes. You couldn't just go in and use it. So it was a very different time. So I didn't know about all of this stuff. So I bought my Osho Zen. I literally picked it because I thought it looked pretty. It was the one that I was drawn to the most, sort of the artwork. There were only a small selection of decks available in the shop that I bought it from, Mysteries, Covent Garden. I remember going through the folder. They had like a ring binder, and they were samples of each deck. In this ring binder, it had the little plastic poly pockets with the little individual slots, and it would hold however many cards, I don't know. And that would be, I think, maybe like six cards from the deck you would see, for example. And you would flip through that, and I can't remember how many decks were in there, but I do remember seeing the Smith-Waite in there, and the Canon Reed Witches Tarot, which I did later go back and get a couple of years later. And I came home, I opened up that big cassette style box, which is long gone from my copy because it got completely trashed through the years of love and use and moving and stuff. And I opened this book, I read it, and then I dove in, started doing readings. And you know what? The reading that I used the most and almost exclusively for years, I didn't even know that because the Celtic Cross is in here, version of the Celtic Cross is in here. I didn't even know that the Celtic Cross was like the tarot reading, because the first reading that you actually get shown in here is called, it's called the Diamond. So it's got the Diamond, the Flying Bird, and a whole bunch. So it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spreads, which is pretty beefy for a small book like this. But the one that I landed on and used pretty much exclusively with this one deck for years, and I've spoken about this before, is the key spread. Man, did I love this key spread so much. And it's funny because looking at it now, it's so long ago. But anyway, so I can't remember what my point was. What was I talking about? Getting bogged down. That was it, getting bogged down with all the system stuff. So I didn't know about all the systems. I didn't know about all the esoteric stuff. I didn't know about the symbolism. I just got stuck in and started reading. And it wasn't until later when I got the Canon Reed Witches Tarot. Maybe I really can't remember when I bought it. 99? 2000? I really couldn't remember. And that has a book that comes with it. I've got it still. And it just was so confusing to me. Okay, it's got all stuff about the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life, and you know, it's just talks about like, oh my god, it's got the different meanings for like the Golden Dawn. It got Golden Dawn, Witches Tarot. It's so like, it's all, can you see? It's very like Thothy, right? And I was like, what? This is like a whole thing. You see, I've still got I've still got the fold out. Whoop. Don't ruin it after all these years. But yeah, so I tried using this, but it was just so confusing. And then this is what the back of the deck looks like. And if I'm honest, I picked this deck because it was a bit saucy. And also, like, the back looked cool as hell. Like, it's black with a big ass pentacle on it. Young witchling. The 90s. So yeah, I started to get bogged down, and I think apart from, like, you know, life getting in the way, and, you know, being a career woman at the time getting in the way, it just really put me off, weirdly. And I think I sort of stepped away from using the tarot, partly because life got in the way, but also partly because I was like, oh, this is a lot. And then when I started to get courtesy of one Kellyanne Maddox, how is this folded? Can you see me struggling? I'm like, what? How, child? How does this? No, why is this so difficult? It's like do you know what? We're just gonna have to leave that for now because it's very distracting. And when I came back and I saw Kellyanne Maddox talking about the Rider-Waite-Smith, that was the deck that she was primarily using along with a couple of others, and she was talking about some sort of esoteric stuff, but she made it more sort of approachable. And that's when I started to like study the tarot, and I picked up some other books. Like, I'd already had some books like Tarot for Yourself and 21 Ways to Read Tarot, and what else did I have? Yeah, I had a bunch of stuff. I'm just looking at what I've got on there. Some books that I've also gotten rid of. I had the Tarot Spells book. But it wasn't then I think I got bogged down with the Smith-Waite, with all the like stuff that's tied to it, and the astrology and the elements and the symbols and blah. And I think I freaked myself out. And I did do a video about 5 years ago called Tarot Overwhelm, where I talk about getting all the books and all the decks and just everything starting to feel a bit unwieldy and a bit too much, and needing to like strip everything back. So yeah, that is interesting. I think, Jen, like, if you're still listening, that we can bog ourselves down. And I think when I started reading Marseille, I took this one book and one workbook, which was Tarot on Earth. And I just was like, I'm not buying any other Marseille books. I'm not doing any other Marseille courses. I'm only going to use this one deck. And that is literally what I did. That was how I read. I wasn't originally using this. I was using the Marshmallow. I'm looking over there because my Marshmallow Marseille is over there on the desk. I was using the Marshmallow Marseille, and then I discovered the New Choice Tarot de Marseille. But this, once this came along, this has been my study deck and my true love Marseille ever since. Oh, I love you. I love it. I'm just going to have another look through. Lenormand seems so hard to me. I've been scared to try it. It seems so advanced. I actually find Lenormand very, very simple. I think, again, we can overcomplicate it. I really recommend the Tarot Reader on YouTube, Layla. She's really good. Unfortunately, one of the people that I watched and learned from a lot of the time, Georgina Tolan, she's removed pretty much all of her videos, which is a shame. I don't know why she had done that. Then, you know, that's her prerogative. Obviously, it's her content. But I learned so much from her, and gutted to see that information isn't there, because I found her really easy to follow. Tarot Tribes Beyond Worlds is also very easy to follow with regards to videos. So just take it one day at a time, and like get one book. And if you were going to get one book, just one book on Lenormand, I would say get, where is it? It's here because I've been using it studying, is the Georgina Toland's The Essential Lenormand. I feel it. I actually think it's a better one to start with than Caitlin Matthews' ones. As much as I love Caitlin Matthews' work, I find her Lenormand just a bit too much, too full on. It's too much information. This is much more just stripped back. And yet offers a wealth of information with regards to reading each card, because Georgina provides different spheres to relate the cards to, whether it's money or health or love or work or whatever, which I really, really like. And I like it when tarot books do that as well. I'm going to drink some more tea because, again, I need to wet my whistle, and it's going to go really cold. I'm also going to have a biscuit. Sorry, folks. Gotta have a dunk. Anne says, I think we're on the same page. Marsha says, yeah, I do too. I read and even shuffle different decks differently. Oh, that's interesting, Marsha. I shuffle decks differently depending on their size and the card stock, just purely because some cards don't allow for me to shuffle the way that I prefer to. I always prefer to riffle shuffle. I know some people find that sacrilege, but each to their own, I guess. Laura says, my base is always elemental, plus numerological, plus directional, but I definitely read different decks differently. Yeah, see? It's interesting seeing some of us are one system, all decks. Some people are different systems for each, different ways of reading for each system. And then some people are just read each deck individually. So you can really, and some people just grab a bit of everything, and it's not so much as one system for all. It's just tailoring it to that deck, right? I'm just reading the comments. Transformation, you're a good first guess, and a gold star for you, Leander. I was talking about a comment from Farah. The Tabula Mundi is a deck I find easier to work with than Thoth, but agree, Rider-Waite-Smith and Thoth are pretty closely aligned, whilst must say I read very differently. Yeah, I do like the look of the Tabula Mundi, and I actually listened to the Fortune's Wheelhouse podcast. For those of you who like podcasts and like tarot, I highly recommend that, with Moline, the creator of the Tabula Mundi and the Rosetta Tarot, and T. Susan Chang, who's got some great books, one of which that Laura here has reviewed very thoroughly. Joey, hello and welcome. Kind of new here. Well, you are very welcome. And you say, kind of new here, wonderful topic. In my opinion, very subjective, is that every single deck has a voice independent from a system. That's really interesting, right? Because I read Marseille in a certain way, but then some of my Marseille feel a bit different depending. So like my Tarot Sereine feels different, a bit different. So yeah, they're even within like a system. Like it's interesting. Like I love how like Vincent Patici was just like, nope, that's just how I read, and it doesn't matter what deck. But he's not a deck collector, and he says in that interview, like, I haven't finished the interview, by the way. I stopped the interview and made myself a cup of tea to do this. But he's not a deck collector, and he said he didn't want to get into deck collecting because therein lies like, you know, he said going, you know, ending up broke. And I think that's why he only has a handful of decks. I don't think he even owns more than 10 decks. And so it's easier to apply that, I think, to all of them. But when some of us have over 100 or more decks, I think it becomes trickier, right? And so you start to see the similarities and the difference. So you get Marseille, Smith-Waite, Thoth, and some decks that kind of do their own thing. I would say like the Numinous is an example of that. The Wild Unknown is another example that kind of does its own thing. The Wooden Tarot is interesting. It kind of does its own thing. You can see where there's influences from various systems get pulled in, but then they kind of do their own thing. The Sacred Rose is a classic deck I feel I struggle to read with, which is why I would love the bloody deck book that you could buy separately, but is £12 million to buy secondhand now because it's out of print. Because I feel like that would really help me understand that deck because it's like wild. But yeah, like, so this is Marseille, right? But it has like a different feel. Not so much the pips, because the pips are a lot more sort of similar. But you know, the courts and the majors, it's a lot more whimsical, right? So that's going to play into it, and because I'm a very visually orientated person, I can't help but be influenced by that, right? Whereas you know, that's why I think I struggle a lot with decks that are created by lots of artists. And if I'm gonna read with a deck that's created by a lot of artists, it needs to be coherent. And so, for an example of that, would be the Ostara Tarot. It's created by 4 different artists, but their work, it's only 4, so it's less overwhelming. They've picked a certain kind of color palette, and then their styles complement each other. So I feel like it works. It's more cohesive. Natalie Schumacher says hi from South Africa. Hello from South Africa. I'm so envious, Masha. How fabulous. The Leander, because Masha's got the Leander deck. Joey says that voice makes you read each deck differently. My example would be the voice of the Deviant Moon Tarot and the Everyday Enchantment, total opposites within the same system. Yes, I would agree. I would also say that the Deviant Moon, although obviously based within the Smith-Waite, does, again, it's one that has a little bit more of its own voice. It's really interesting. Whereas something like maybe the Halloween Tarot is a really clever interpretation of the Smith-Waite. So too the Zombie Tarot is an excellent, clever interpretation of the Smith-Waite meanings. Let's see what other, if there's anyone saying. Hello, Claire Young. Caught another live. Hello. Currently learning Marseille and playing cards, and also finding I take dramatically different approaches to both. This is really interesting to just see how people approach it. And there's no right or wrong way, right? Like, I'm not here saying, well, you should have one system and apply it to all decks ever, tarot, you know, or that you should take all of those different systems and refine it, like what Anna's trying to do, like is aiming for, and bring her own stuff into it. Like, she's not saying that we all should do that. She just wants to take all the different things and stir it up and all the other bits she knows and pull it into her own system, which I think a lot of us sort of do, sort of naturally as readers, right? We just pull in what we know. So I'm like the hay fever and itchy nose and stuff. So I could try, really conscious of, where's my hanky? I've got my hanky in my pocket. John says, okay, just going to pop you on my bedside table and listen along, so apologies. Oh, sweet dreams. Night. Claire says, also finding a more cartomantic approach to less Rider-Waite Smith decks, like the Wild Unknown, so not relying on... Yeah, see, I don't read the Wild Unknown like the Rider-Waite Smith either. To me, the Wild Unknown, again, it has like a pippish feel, a little bit of Smith-Waite, and then a little bit of its own thing again. So you kind of... I feel like it's hard for me to just have one system across the board. So I think I read Smith-Waite, Marseille... Again, I can't really speak to Thoth at the moment. They have their own like vibe, and like I'm more inclined to use positional spreads with a situational scenic deck than I am a Marseille or Pip. And then within that, there can be deviations again, right? And then you, like I said, you've got decks that do their own thing, like the Numinous Tarot. Or the Cicerobito, for example, that brings in its own, some of its own stuff, even though it's based in Smith-Waite. I really like the Numinous for the fact that it's completely ungendered. It's the deck that I've been using as my situational deck for the most part. My Rider-Waite Smith I've been using is my Melanated Classic. And then I've been using, this is very glossy cardstock. I believe the newer version is the linen cardstock, which is the same as a threadbound oracle. I would love a sort of more linen-y version. But this is based within the Smith-Waite, and then it's been... really sort of taken away all the gendered language, changed a bunch of the titles to remove that gendering, and then changed the names of all of the suits. So the candles are the wands. This is the element of fire, obviously. And then you've got the tomes, which are pentacles, so books, because there's that earthy physicality. Just even thinking about holding a tome, a hefty tome, and the sort of physicality of that. So it's earthy. The bells are swords, so that the sound of the bell rings through the air, element of air, thoughts, clear as a bell, your thought is as clear as a bell. And then, hang on, let me see, we go. The vials are cups. So you can see here, would be the 5 of cups. So they've got the intact vials. So you can see where the Smithwaite comes in, because you've got the intact vials here on the shelf, but then they're crying over the broken ones. So you can see the Smithwaitiness there, and then all all of the courts are renamed as well, again to remove the gendered language. So, you know, obviously the hanged one instead of the hanged man. I love that there's like can you see there's a door in the tree, so you can go inside it. Just look, touches. Oh God, just so beautiful. This deck. Oh, I love it so much. Anyway, so yeah, I for this deck, it's very much, I'm overlaying what I know from Smithwaite, but then I'm also kind of looking at the artwork and the sort of way it's been interpreted and pulling that in as well. So when I'm reading a Smithwaite, a Smithwaite is a Smithwaite is a Smithwaite, I'm reading it as Smithwaite, right? Like I'm talking about Pamela Coleman Smith's artwork, not a reinterpretation of the Smithwaite like the Next World Tarot, not the Next World Tarot, sorry, the This Might Hurt Tarot or the Modern Witch Tarot, which brings in more modern elements, because then that starts to change it. But if I'm reading a Smithwaite, I'm reading it as a Smithwaite, right? This is based in Smithwaite, so then you get the Smithwaite meanings, but then its own flavor. I don't know, but the way that I was thinking about it, and the thing that made me come in to do this live, oh, my tea is gonna go so cold, is that when I think about it, for the way I see like Marseille and Thoth and Smithwaite, the big 3, right? And it's funny, we talk about Marseille actually, but we don't really talk about the Italian decks. We don't say Sforza and then Marseille and then Smithwaite and then Thoth. For the Italian decks, although we do use them, like the Soprafino and the Vachetta and so on, they tend to get less mentioned as a system. They get lumped in with Marseille as like Marseille and Pip decks. That's interesting. I wonder why that is. I guess just because the Marseille is used a lot more than the Italian decks just in mainland Europe generally. That's just a theory, I don't know. But the way that I was thinking about it is that although some people will say tarot is just a system and it's the same, it doesn't matter which deck you're using, someone like Vincent Petici, for example, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but the way I view it is those systems are like languages, spoken languages or sign languages, because sign languages, different countries have their own sign language, right? So British sign language is different to American sign language, for example. And I know people that speak both and have gotten together, and then there's miscommunication because there's differences, right? Just as the spoken word is the spoken word, I'm speaking to you in English, right? But someone is speaking German is speaking a spoken language. Someone speaking French or Spanish or Arabic or, you know, Yiddish are speaking a spoken language, but they have their own way of expressing, and it's different. So there are phrases in some languages that don't exist, that have no exact translation, no exact version in English, for example. So, you know, getting a German person to explain Schadenfreude, we don't have an exact word that kind of matches that in English. And, you know, here in the UK, we have had wave after wave over the centuries of different people coming over and giving us their sort of importing their languages. So we get a little bit of the Scandi and the Germanic, we get a bit of the French from the Normans, you know, we get a mixture of stuff. So it's funny that I would use a word like raison d'être or joie de vivre or entrepreneur. They are words that I use as part of my vocabulary, but they're French. And I'm like, well, what would we, because we use the French word rather, because we don't really use the English version, because the French word, there's no real substitution. Does that make sense? So for me, tarot is a language. But the Marseille is a different language. The Marseille is French. It's French. The Visconti is Italian, right? The Smith way, I guess, is English and very stuffy. And the Thoth, I don't want to say it's English as well. The Thoth is just doing whatever it's doing. Right. So to me, they're all a certain language. They're the language of tarot, but they are different, just like languages around the world are different. So that was basically the crux of what I was thinking about when I was thinking about the way that we read tarot. So I might speak Spanish to a friend. My Spanish is very rusty. I'm still speaking to them, right? I'm just speaking a different language, and here I'm speaking to you in English. If I'm speaking in German to a friend, I'm still communicating with them, but again, it's a different language, but it's still speaking to them. I'm conversing. I don't know. Does that make sense? Let's have another look at the chat, and then I think I need to wrap this up because I've been on for nearly an hour, and this was a very sort of impromptu, off the cuff kind of thing that I just wanted to just talk about. And I didn't expect so many people, honestly. Jerry says, thank you. I tend to read Ciro Marchetti decks the same way independently of system. His cartomancy decks and tarots have the same voice to me. Maybe it's something art related. Art affects the read. Yeah, so for me, the art affects the reading as well, because again, I am an artist. I'm very visually orientated. I was going to have a look at some decks. I'll read the notes, the comments, and then try and look at some decks as an example. I got my first deck before we had internet at home as well. It's a strange Smith-Waite Marseille hybrid. Ooh, what deck is that, Laura? Hey, Richard at Longman Tarot. Lovely to see you. I got the complete tarot kit, the tiny square one, as my first. I had no idea about the wider tarot world. I wish I wrote down my readings and what those cards were trying to tell me. Tarot journals, folks. Tarot journals. I wish I had the same. I did write some of my readings down, but a lot of my old journals, I either tore pages out because they looked messy, or because I was sort of wanting to start fresh, or I threw them away. There's B. Hi, B. But yeah, tarot journals, they are handy. Anne says, any tips on how to identify which court might be the querent or an influence on the querent, especially in reading Marseille, if not using reversals? Only read upright with Rider-Waite-Smith and Thoth. I would say, if there's one court, because I don't necessarily always relate courts to people in a reading. I'm more inclined to do it for Marseille than I am for Smith-Waite. Again, it's just the way that I've been learning and studying the systems. It's just the thing. I don't know, but I wouldn't. If there's one court card, then you're using that as people. The court cards represent people in a reading. I would say that obviously that is probably the querent. I would also say it depends on if you're using you said you don't use positional spreads though, and for Marseille you said you do freestyle, right? So say if you've got a 3x3 portrait 9-card spread, and you've got a couple of couple of court cards in there. Say you've got 2 court cards. I guess it would be dependent on the context of the question. Oh, I can always hear my elbows crunching on my desk. The context of the question, and the other cards that are in the reading and the position that they are. So if you've got a 9 card, so say the person that is doing the querent is asking about something to do with romance and their love life, and they are maybe at the top corner of the reading, and you've got a Knight of Cups, and then you've got maybe another court card which is maybe the Page of Wands. I would say that the Knight of Cups would be your querent, because they are the knight questing for love, so it becomes related to the question, and also it could be dependent on what card they're looking at as well, right? So if that ties in with the theme of the reading, they're looking at maybe another Cups card, or they're looking at the Lovers. That to me would indicate that's your querent, and then your Page of Wands would be t'other person, right, in the significant other or the potential significant other. And then they're right they're the Page of Wands. What would that mean? That person is maybe there's a little bit of a spark there, but maybe less so. They're not like full force like Knight of Wands. They can be coaxed. Maybe it's a creative, or it could maybe speak to how they meet. Like maybe they meet doing something that is very sort of wandsy, or maybe the person that they're interested in is a sort of does some kind of creative thing, or is kind of like a passionate person. You just see what I mean? For me, that's how I would pull that in. Does that make sense? Again, your mileage may vary. Tom Benjamin's got some good example readings with regards to looking at the courts and stuff. So definitely worth checking his stuff out. I think they go like back, you need to go back at like 2 or 3 years at least to find them, but it's well worth having a trawl through to see if you can see some of his example readings, because that's he does some nine card readings, I think, or like the Council of 13 from Camellia Elias. I think he's done some examples of that as well, which are quite helpful. So that might help. I bought my first tarot deck before knowing any systems. When I got it home, I was surprised it wasn't Pip. I was so used to seeing Pip because of family, and it totally threw me off. That's interesting, Trisha, because a lot of people actually have the reverse experience, don't they? I'm saying that, though, a lot of the sort of media, like film and TV that I saw growing up, the decks that I did see were not necessarily Smith-Waite. They were actually Marseille or sort of Italian decks. And an example of that, which a deck was created for, was Solitaire in the James Bond film. Oh my God, what is the film? But you know the one I mean, right? Jen's still listening. Well, that was 20 minutes ago. Maybe Jen's fallen asleep. I just bought the Blue Bell Lenormand. The poems on the cards should really help. It's my first Lenormand. Oh, hello to Zaz123. Well, I hope that you enjoy it. I have an amazing book on Lenormand to recommend. Lenormand 36 cards by Andy Borovesh. I don't want to butcher the name. Andy Boroveshengra. I honestly believe it's one of the best books. I will have to, I'm going to put that up so people can see. I'll have to try and remember that. My analytical brains, this is Anne, I need to study and reach the core of the card. I tend to bring all info and associations I can, whichever deck I read with. V. Kestrel, hello. Lovely to see you. The only decks I simply cannot connect with and read with are those fluffy unicorn type decks. That's so funny you say that, Anne. Because where is she? Where is she? Oh my God, can I find her? I don't know, that's not that. I don't know what I'm doing. Valley Girl. Oh my God, where is that? Cannot find it. Is it in her? It's here. I have the crystal unicorn. I have a friend, I'm making the pouch for their birthday. It's their birthday tomorrow, and they have the a 20-year-old copy of the oh sorry, my nose is so itchy. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. They have a 20-year-old copy of the Tower of the Moon Garden, and obviously that's covered in unicorns. So I'm making them a pouch, and I've got like this, and they're obsessed with unicorns. They are like obsessed with unicorns. They like collect unicorns. So I've got this, I saved this one last unicorn charm that I have to put on their little pouch in the colors that match the deck. But yeah, but I can read with this because it's thing. But I ended up ordering myself a copy of the Tower of the Moon Garden. I was like, I want a copy. It's one of those decks because you just think, well, it's a mass market, it'll always be available. Turns out it looks like it might be going out print, folks, just FYI. But yeah, some would say, like, because my favorite Smith-Waite is the Tower of the Magical Forest, right? And that's all just cute, like bug-eyed creatures, animals. And loads of people are like, I can't read with it, it's too cute and fluffy. But those little creatures, they can really slap you upside the head, let me tell you. But I do know what you mean. Like, I feel that way about a lot of Oracle decks, Anne. Like, I always joke, it's like the fairy giving the unicorn a bath, surrounded by rainbows and sparkles, and I'm just like it's too much. I can't. Oh, Joe says, I am an opera singer by formation, so I always find the voice of everything. The voice of the deck comes for me from the deck interview spread reading I do. That's interesting, because I never interview my spreads. Did I see a Candy? Hello, Candy. How you doing? Lovely to see you. And Nancy's in here. Hello. Recently found it fun to read Deviant Moon and Trionfio della Luna together. I've done that. They have interesting voices. I love the Trionfio. I still need to, dreaming of the Trionfio della Luna Paradoxical Rose. I literally dreamed about that deck last night. It was in my dreams. I'm like, shipping, folks. Just shipping is a killer. I love the numinous, and I honestly tempted to buy a second one in the linen stock. I've never bought a second copy of for card stock, but I use that deck a lot. Yeah, I use it a lot as well, Laura. Let's see. Talking about the reading the Trionfio and the Deviant Moon together. So am I. Oh, it's this hay fever. This is really annoying. Let's see. Joey says, it's a true privilege to be here with you, wonderful people. I follow all your channels. I really appreciate your content and voices. My understanding is that it reaches and has a beautiful reading voice. Oh, that's so lovely. I bet you have an actual beautiful voice being an opera singer. How fancy and civilized and sort of sophisticated. Goodness me. Meow, 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 meow. Let's just have another look. The Solar Busker. Yeah, and the Solar Buskers, Pixie took a lot of her inspiration from that, didn't she? Like the Three of Swords is very like straight up Solar Busker, isn't it? Let's see what Masha is saying. The way I see tarot is a system, like Lenormand is a system, Sibylla is a system, but Rider-Waite-Smith, Thoth, and Tarot de Marseille are not systems. They are lineages with their own intricacies. But then they are all tarot. So how are they? They're all, do you know what I mean? Tarot is a system, but they are tarot, so they are a system. They're not systems, they're lineages. Do you mean they're lineages of tarot? Yeah, I don't know. That's what I mean, like languages, like, you know, the Latin languages have a root in Latin, obviously, but they're all different. So their lineage, their root would be Latin. Like English, it has so many influences that it is a weird, like, concoction that sort of evolved into what it is today. Meow, 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 meow. Hi, Ellie. Lovely to see you. My first deck was the Jonathan D tarot. I want to be saying now I have the Jonathan D as well. It is basically printed paper. I've often considered backing that with just clear backing contact paper. Because just to thicken it up, because I just know at some point the way I shuffle, it's gonna bend. I've already bent several decks. That is the the risk you take when you riffle shuffle up, but it is a risk I am willing to take. I mean, I've done it on indie decks as well, and there's some of them, like my Tarot Seren. I bent the Three of Cups on this one, and she's just like that now. That's just the way it goes. I don't know what I can find. I'm not going to go through the whole deck. Meow, meow. Oh my god, my tea is going to be... Apologies, but like any longer and it would have just been really cold. That still wasn't that great. That wasn't that great. Kind of regret that. Anyway. Chris is here. Hello, Elemental Cartomancy. And Hazel Jane. Hi, Sinead. You're right, my love. And Robin, Mr. Robin. Robin, has your parcel arrived yet? I need to check the tracking on that. Otherwise, I don't know what is going on. Tom Benjamin video is really helpful with reading Marseille. If he's now only reading Marseille upright, must check out his reasonings on courts now. Luke James is... oh, there we go. There's always at least one, isn't there? Bye-bye. Okay, let's see. Oh, Chris has dealt with the troll. Thank you, my love. I woke up, need to use my Wild Unknown tarot. Hi, Marsha. How are you? Lovely to see you. I've never engaged with the Solar Busker, but I once saw a gorgeous book about it in a shop. I was tempted just because the artwork. Yeah, I've never bought a copy of the Solar Busker myself. It's one of those I feel like I should have a copy at some point for posterity because it's sort of a historical deck and of the way that it's influenced sort of subsequent decks. But yeah. The Game of Saturn. I've not heard of that. Recently acquired the Marseille new incarnation from Eugene Vinitsky. I've not heard of that. Oh no, I have seen it. Yeah, it's like the illustrated pips, right? I think I've seen someone's popped up a walkthrough of that. I don't know why it's taken so long to get to you, Robin, because other people, like Jennifer Ball, received her parcel and she's literally in California, like on the other side. She's even further away. Maybe it doesn't like when I checked your tracking for the previous parcel I sent you, it still says here in the UK we've got it, which I do need to chase because I need to reclaim on that because that's a pain. The Fool has a bagpipe in the solar busker. So cool. Oh, I don't remember that. That's cool. Hi, Scott. You're right, my dear. So let's see. I think I'm up to date with the chat, but let's just have a look at some decks quickly. I know I've been going for an hour now. In for a penny, in for a pound, eh? We're in it, so we might as well. So for me, let's just find okay. And we've got a Smithwaite, got the Centennial, got the This Might Hurt. Let's pull a Marseille or a Marseille-esque. Okay, so I've got the Triomphe della Luna here. So what would be a good card to look at sort of comparisons and how you would read them? So I don't know. Let's just find a card. I'll start with this one because this one actually, that's quite finding something that's a little that deviates slightly in its modernization. Just so, please excuse me while actually, the Four of Cups is a good example because I've spoken about the Four of Cups in the This Might Hurt before and how I read it differently to the Smithwaite. Like I pull in the Smithwaite because that's already layered in my brain. But then I look at the artwork in itself. So let's see if I can find it quickly enough without it. Oh, here we go. Perfect. Okay. So we have the Smithwaite Centennial and we have the This Might Hurt. Can people see these okay? So this one, everything's reversed on StreamYard, so it's confusing. This one I call like the sulky card because look at that. They've got all these lovely cups and they are just completely ignoring. I don't know if they're sulking. Maybe they are so focused on what they already have that they're ignoring a gift. Like there's loads of different ways you can read this. But this one feels very different because if you take this one, the character has their arms crossed and it feels very like, I don't wanna. Right? Whereas with this one, it feels very chill, right? She's got her back against the tree like this character, but instead of just harumphing and leaning back against the tree, it feels like because she's in a meditative pose, she's in the lotus position, it feels very much like she is it's a other people might have done this before as well. The boredom card, Scott. That's another good reading of it. The sulky card or the boredom card is to one of the meditation practices or grounding practices you can use is to meditate with your back against a tree and you're sitting on the ground. It's very grounding and you're sort of connecting with the stability of the tree, right? So that's what in my head, that's what she's doing, and she's very, very peaceful, and she's got her cups around her. These look like two water glasses, pint glasses, and then there's like a wine glass, and it looks like someone's offering her a cup of joe, right? Nice cup of black coffee by the looks of things. Oh yes, black Americano. And it doesn't so much feel like necessarily that she is ignoring it. It's just that she is so in tune already that either she doesn't need it or she's making the decision that she doesn't want it because she's reached this Zen state and she's chill. Like if I meditate, I don't then go drink coffee because I've just chilled myself out and calmed my tits. I'm not going to then go add caffeine to that because I'm very caffeine sensitive, because I'm just going to go from feeling pretty mellow to bouncing off the walls in about 30 minutes. Right? So now let's look at the Four of Cups in the Triomphe della Luna by Patrick Valenza. So let's hope it's not like the last, when you go through the entire deck. Oh my goodness, of course it's going to be the very, very, what the, are you kidding me? It was like the third from last card. Apologies. But here you see, very different, right? So do you see why I would read that differently? You could almost say this has like a tree trunky feel to it though, right? And if you look in the cups, it looks like there's either coffee in two and water in two, like, because there's two that are dark and then two that look like they've got blue in them, like water. Or you could say maybe these two are empty and then these two are full. Oh my God, I'm not even going to bother trying to point on this reverse ass bloody StreamYard. But you see what I mean? Like, for me, they feel very, 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 very different. And so I read them differently. I'm going to read these two more similar because they're based, Smithwaite. But it like just feels so different to me. Now, let's take another Marseille, 4 of Cups. And you can see how you have like obviously this is a reinterpretation of Marseille, so it's not true Marseille. This is a reproduction of a Marseille. So let's see if we can find, but it's going to be right at the end again. Oh no, not too bad. But you see here, this is more of a classic Marseille. I can't remember which this one is based on from the top of my head. But you see, you've got 4 cups. You've got these. I love this because it has like the bubble cups. They're really funny, and I just love them. But you've got something going up the middle of both of them, right? But the thing is, you could still read them differently. You've got this one has very upward feeling with the leaves of the side, it's sort of facing upwards. You've got more of that V shape there, right? And it's sort of blossoming. Whereas with this one, with the Triomphe, you've got most of the stuff is going on in the middle, right? And then you can get really like sort of start to read with the face. You could sort of pull that into the reading, so you can read Marseille decks differently. And then obviously some Marseille decks, so for example the Serene and the Marshmallow, created by the same people, the Wandering Oracle, but from what I understand, the Sword suit, for example, some tarot decks will have the swords always pointing up. So here you can see it's pointing up. But in some decks, in Marseille's, the sword will be pointing down. And sometimes that seems to be deliberate, and sometimes it's not. And sometimes it's due to sort of misprinting from back in the day, and it's sort of been reproduced so many times it's become canon. So, you can, let's see the 4 of Cups maybe in this one. This Tarot Sirene again, just while I've got it here. That's a 5. Just to see, of course, again, it's going to be just sort of right at the end. Please bear with me. 4 of Coins. 3 of Cups. There's the bent card. 4 of Cups. Okay, so again, a bit different, right? So you've got that central thing here, but you've got one thing going up and going that way, and one thing coming down and going in. So again, 3 of the same cards, Marseille based. But where's the bloody, what have I done with the other one? Oh, butts. Oh, it's at the bottom. It's okay. I'm just surrounded by cards now. It's a hot mess. Piles of cards falling over. Oh God, this is... So they all have something in the middle, but what's in the middle is different. And then with the Serene, you have all of these little fishies. Oh my God, they're so cute. Look at the little fishies. There's like little pinky purple ones. That one's got a really, just look how cute. And they're all different. Oh my goodness, cute. So then you could probably take in, you could be like, maybe read into that with the little fishes floating around and nibbling at stuff, and like, you know, Four of Cups, you could say in a reading, maybe it's representing emotional stability, and you've got these two people that are in a relationship. They're the little eels, and they're like together, and they're like looking at each other and kissing, and their bond is really strong, and because four is stability, and it's nice and stable. And then you've got all these little fishies that are trying to like pick at their relationship, but no, they are solid and stable, and they are focused on each other, and nothing is going to get in their way. Like just one example. Do you see what I mean? That's just using those little fishes as part of the reading. Anyway, so yeah, for me, I don't read tarot as one system, and my aim is not to create one system for myself. I very much read the big two, because I'm not a Thoth reader at the moment. I'm still learning. I read the Marseille and the Smith-Waite separately, differently, but there is some crossover. But a little normal bleed comes in, and then again, yeah, I am looking at the artwork as well. So I don't know what my point was with this. It was just amusing. I had. I'm just going to have a last look through the comments, and then I'm going to go, because I think I've bothered you all long enough, honestly. So let's see. Ooh, let's just make sure I'm up to date. I missed out on the Fancy Scarlet Press edition of the Solar Busker, but got the Low Scarabaeo one. Nice, glossy but nice. Marcia says, yes, the one system is tarot, where the lineages of tarot are Rider-Waite-Smith, Thoth, and Tarot de Marseille. The origins and grammar, if you will, differ, yes, just like the languages, as you said. Oh, I see what you mean, yes. Thanks, Robin. That'll be great with regards to the package. Let's just double check. I think I'm close to the bottom. Night, Marshall. That was a while ago. That was 10 minutes ago. I hope you had lovely dreams. Lots of tarot dreams. Simon just mentioned the Four of Cups as the meditation card. Yeah, that's Candy's saying hello to people. Meow, 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 meow. Everyone say goodbye to Masha, tarot trainee. Good morning, all listening as I shoot off to work. Have a fantastic day. On to you too. I hope you have a good day wherever you are. Tom Benjamin's comments on Four Cups is what sold me on going on the Marseille deck. Four is stability. Yeah. I love the bulbous classic tarot classic cups. Me too. Tarot classic is like my favorite Marseille. Off to bed for me, says Trisha. Gute Nacht. Hay fever is illegal today, says Claire. Yeah, my nose has been really itching and like and sort of running. I literally got a hanky in my pocket, but my nose is a bit red. Okay. Kelly, it was an interesting discussion. Oh, thank you. And says, thanks, great to know I'm not alone in my reading style. Totally agree with all you've said. Oh, cool, thank you. But yeah, like I don't have any real sort of formalized way of reading still. I think we just continue to grow and evolve. Like sometimes a deck will come along that will sort of give us a new perspective on a particular card or just on the system in general. Like the Numinous Tarot for me did that, because it took away all gender and renamed a bunch of the cards, and it really helped, because I get really fed up with a lot of the depictions of like the Empress and a lot of the gendered language around tarot, and that really helped like expand my understanding. So that sometimes a deck will come along. The Trionfi della Luna for me, for like bringing something a bit different to the Marseille and a little bit cheeky and fun. The Deviant Moon did that to me for the Rider-Waite-Smith, for example. And yeah, I think that obviously new decks will continue to come out and influence us, and new books will continue to come out and come up with new ideas and interesting things. Maybe new information will continue to be unearthed by tarot scholars about the history of tarot, which may inform the way that we read. New readers and tarot tubers will come along and have interesting things to say, and we will put that all in our tarot toolkit. That's the Tom Benjamin's book title, latest book title, Tarot Toolkit. But yeah, that's why he's done that book, right? It's all stuff that you can use. So yeah, you carry your little tarot toolkit. This is my tarot toolkit. I've got my tarot toolkit. Doop, 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 doop. And I carry it around, and it gives me, and I pull out what I need depending on the reading and the deck that I'm using, right? So anyway, let's just check I'm up to date. We do what we do, says Claire. We do indeed. And Robin says he tends to read all systems like an open reading style. That's cool. Dust to Onyx really brought something new for Anne. Yeah, cool. Different perspectives, right? You know, seeing the tarot through the lens of a Black woman, right, and her experience, because obviously we filter the way we read tarot through our lived experiences. And actually there's an interview over on Justin Michael's Tarot with Tom Benjamin, where Tom Benjamin talks about, obviously we read through the lens of our own life experiences as well, which is really interesting. Hello, Kristen Louise. You all right, my love? Just about to go. Sorry, darling. But yeah, so again, I was like, gonna make it a quick one. Did I fuck? It's just, can I ever make a succinct, non-rambly, coherent video? I think not, but it's okay. Because again, my video style is going to be different to other people's video style. And lately, just going live is easier for me than filming and editing and uploading and rendering. Meow. So that's why I do that. And also it's easy for me to have a thought, and rather than set up all the filming doodads, I could just go live. It's very sort of, it's, I guess it's like a, not, what's the word? Instantaneous. We've gotten so used to being impatient. I'm even getting impatient with making videos. I guess I should get back on actually making proper videos at some point. I'm just putting all my cards back in the different piles because I've made a right, it's in a right 2 and 8. Right 2 and 8, as my mum would say. Look at the state of that. Right, okay. Okay, I think I'm all up to date with the chat. So thank you to everyone that joined in the chat and who popped in and popped out. And for those of you that may watch the watch back. Yeah, watch the replay. Watch it back after the fact is what I meant to say. Hello. And thank you for joining me. And yeah, if you watching this back after the fact, let me know. Do you read as one and one of like tarot for you, or do you read them differently, or do you read them according to each deck individually? It's all a little bit whatever. I don't know. It's an interesting. It's just yeah, it's interesting, and like maybe in another like 2 years or 5 years. I will have a different viewpoint. In fact, I hope so, right? Because we grow and evolve. The way I read now is different to how I read 5 years ago. Hell, 5 years ago, I wasn't even reading Marseille and Thoth decks, and now it's my predominant read, like my preferred type of deck to read with. And it's very different to the way that I read, 20 years ago, 25, like, hang on, it wasn't 96, 97. Yeah, about 25 years ago when I picked up my first deck and I was like laying out the cards in that key spread and, reading the meanings in the book and trying to remember them. Like, we grow and we evolve and it changes and shifts. Maybe I won't be using reversals in a couple of years. Who knows? It's an interesting journey, and that's the point, right? It's a journey. But yeah, thank you, everyone. I want to say goodbye. Goodness, there's so many of you still in here, like Scott and Laura and Kristen and Bea and Claire and Anne. And I know Robin's in here, and goodness, Joey and V Kestrel and Trish. Oh, Trisha's gone to bed, and Chris, if he's still here, and just all of you. Thank you. And yeah, I will see you in the next one, whether that is pre-recorded, but let's be honest, it's probably going to be another impromptu live. Like they're all, I keep saying that because they're all impromptu, but they are. I don't very rarely plan these. I'm just like, either I am bored and I need to procrastinate, or, I have a thought like I did today. I have a thought. Hopefully I have more than one thought each day. Probably explains a lot. But yeah, you take care. Do the right thing. Keep yourself safe. Socially distance. Wash your hands. Wear a mask. All that jazz. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.